Welcome in. It's Tuesday, January 3rd. It's the first show of the new year. So welcome to 2023. I'm excited. We're back with our NBA Tuesdays. In fact, I'm actually bringing something to the show today that surprisingly hasn't been done yet. You see it in the title, you see it in the thumbnail. It's some good old-fashioned power rankings. We're going to have some fun with that. Yeah, obviously we have some news to cover first, but then we'll dive into all of those power rankings. This is your early reminder to drop a like on the podcast, on the show, whatever you want to call it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, as, hey, we're closing in on 50 subscribers, our first, big milestone. So go ahead and be that 50th subscriber, help the channel out. But turn those post notifications on as well, as we have some big news coming up. I'm not going to say when, but stay tuned for that. Without further ado, welcome to the Anomaly Podcast. I'm your host, Owen Stiftar. Let's see what the NBA world has to offer. Okay, first topic is Demar Hamlin. Very sad news to start, but I want to cover it. I want to cover it without a shadow of a doubt. But for those that don't know, Demar Hamlin, safety for the Buffalo Bills, he suffered a cardiac arrest following a hit, in last night's game against the Bengals. Per the Buffalo Bills Twitter, his heartbeat was restored on the field last night, and he was transferred to the University of Cincinnati's Medical Center for further testing and treatment. He's currently sedated and listed in critical condition. This one was tough. I was watching this game with my dad last night, and at first, we just thought, hey, he busted up his knee, and the players were just giving him space. They're surrounding him so the media can't see, yada yada, right? But then it just kept going and going. The ads played for, I believe he was on the field for 15 minutes. So very tough to see. Obviously, it was way more severe than all of us fans thought at first. But in my opinion, the players out there last night, in all of their years of football, they saw something that they have never seen before. And I believe everybody's going through this right now. The incident last night, it's not just about a football player. This is about a brother. This is about a son, a cousin, a friend, a teammate, whatever. The lives of Demar Hamlin and his family, the lives of all the players involved, they are forever changed as of last night. And that all happened in a split second, right? It's crazy how fast stuff like that can happen, especially the severity of something like this. But for Demar Hamlin only, speaking just to him, this has to hurt, specifically because for something you've wanted to do your entire life, something that you love, something that you've dreamed for, you've worked for every day of your entire life. The game of football, to make it to the pros, to help your family out financially. It's gone. Just like that. And that's the scary part of football. And, obviously I assume he'll have some type of compensation, but that's very, very scary to watch, and not only is possibly his career gone as a football player, his life is currently in jeopardy as well. At 24 years old, most people don't even realize they can die. And Demar Hamlin's facing that right now. He's facing that heavily right now, right at 24 years old. He just started his NFL career. He's playing great this year too. I'm sending my condolences to your family. I'm hoping for a speedy recovery. And I'm asking all of you, as a favor from the Anomaly Podcast, as of Owen Stiftar, I'm asking you guys to keep Demar Hamlin in your prayers. Just keep him in your mind as we go forward, man, because this is a scary situation. His life is still currently in jeopardy. From the last that I've read, he does have feeling in all of his extremities. He's just he's just hooked up to a lot of tubes right now, so he should be okay, right? But obviously we never know with a very scary injury like he had last night. Prayers up to Demar Hamlin and his family. On to more news. We have Donovan Mitchell in the NBA side of things. Last night, obviously, he had a career night. He poured in 71 points. He set a Cleveland franchise record while doing so. And 71 points in a game, it was the most by an NBA player since Kobe Bryant dropped 81 points against the Raptors in 2006. You know, it was a historic performance for sure. It was the third most by a player in a single NBA game ever, right? When we talk about the 75 years of basketball, Donovan Mitchell has the third most points in a single game by any player of all time. So crazy to say. I caught the tail end of it. I caught the second half of the game. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see the first half, but a great game by Donovan Mitchell. Nonetheless, you know, it's safe to say the trade has already paid off, especially just with that one game, right? The next topic we have, new year, more buckets. It was a crazy day of scoring. Obviously, last night was highlighted by Donovan Mitchell's 71 points and what happened in the NFL, but I want to show some love to the other great performances that happened last night. Klay Thompson, as you see, he had 54 points in a crazy overtime win against the Atlanta Hawks. And Joel Embiid, he had 42 and 11 in a big win against the Pelicans, which we'll talk about both of those teams later. DeMar DeRozan, he put up 44 in that loss to the Cavaliers, where DeMar put up 44, where Donovan Mitchell had 71. Right, so great game for his, for anybody's standard. But obviously, when you have another player have the third most points in an NBA game ever, 44 points doesn't look that great, right? But still, I want to show some love to DeMar DeRozan. And LeBron, as you see on your screen as well, he had a crazy game. We'll get into him in just a sec, but it was a crazy night for scoring in the NBA. Crazy day for individual performances, right? Next up, we have Le Tracker. LeBron is obviously, he's only 484 points away from passing Kareem and becoming the all-time NBA leading scorer, right? At this rate, it's impossible to predict how or when LeBron will achieve this record, right? Or when he will get that all-time record with how amazing he's been playing. Last night he had 43 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and a win against Charlotte, which shout out to LaMelo Ball. He's been great since he's returned. But LeBron James, he's had back-to-back 40-point games since turning 38 years old, right? So LeBron James, he's a robot. That $1 million a year he spends on his body is paying off. He's unlike no other, right? And even though the Lakers have been struggling this season, they're way out of the playoff picture. And even though LeBron's practically already given his exit interview with the Lakers about a week ago, at least this season, for LeBron's legacy and just for LeBron, right? At least he will achieve this feat. At least he will pass Kareem and be the number one scorer in the history of the NBA. Next up, we have Nate McMillan. The Athletic reported that Nate McMillan was considering stepping down around midseason, basically retiring from the Atlanta Hawks head coaching position. But McMillan came out and he said that it is not true. In fact, in a recent interview, he said, and I quote, "We're trying to get our guys healthy and make another run at the playoffs. But the things that were reported, look, I'm here to coach this year, and I've talked to Governor Tony Ressler many times. Our goal is the same. It is to make the playoffs, and that's what I'm working towards." It's safe to say that Nate McMillan, he's focused on this season. He gave the politically correct answer, to say the least. And it's safe to say that he'll be here for at least another season, right? But Nate McMillan, look, he knows the politics of the NBA. The Atlanta Hawks love Trae Young. They want to build around Trae Young. And they're going to get rid of the head coach before they get rid of Trae Young, right? So Nate McMillan knows the politics in the game. He knows that if they were to get rid of one, it would be him. But next up, we're going to talk about Devin Booker. Obviously, this happened a couple days ago. I still wanted to cover it on the show, but I apologize. Phoenix Suns guard Devin Booker, he's going to be out of the team's lineup for at least another month. Now, obviously, I believe it was the 28th of December. He suffered a groin injury that will keep him sidelined for 4 weeks. He'll be reevaluated then. Look, I mean, this Suns team, they're already slipping. They're a mess right now. CP3's had his fair share of injuries this season as well. Obviously, he's going to have to take a big step up, right, to keep this Suns team relevant, or at least to keep them afloat. Obviously, they have the whole situation with DeAndre Ayton not even wanting to be there. You have Jay Crowder sitting at home waiting to be traded. You have other injuries like Cam Johnson, who's out for the season. Great young promising wing for them. A lot of stuff is happening in Phoenix this season, right? And it's a mess to say the least, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they slip to probably the 8 or 9 seed. And when Devin Booker comes back, they're going to have to win a good stretch of games to stay out of the play-in, right? But shout out to Josh Okogie. Well, you know what? That's one player I did want to shout out for this Suns team. He's been amazing this season. Obviously, he was a bust coming, with his first stint in Minnesota. He didn't look the greatest, but he's turning it around for sure. But on this date in NBA history is the next thing. Obviously, shout out to my dad. This was his idea for the show. But on this date in NBA history, January 3rd, in the last 75 years, most importantly, in 2021, just a few seasons ago, Steph Curry dropped his career high of 62 points against the Portland Trailblazers, which is a team that he seemingly hates, right? He always seems to have great performances against the Trailblazers. But in that game, he had a 21-point first quarter alone. He had 8 total threes throughout the game. Legendary performance, right? And at that time, don't forget, Klay Thompson was out with injury, right? So that lineup, it was a very young lineup. It was Andrew Wiggins' first season with the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson was out. They were starting a rookie James Wiseman. So Steph Curry stepped up and he carried that offense in a much needed win at the time. I can't talk right now, but stick with me. And another notable thing that happened on January 3rd, in 1998, legendary head coach Bill Fitch, obviously he coached his 2000th NBA game. He's one of only 6 coaches in NBA history to achieve that feat. The only active coach is Greg Popovich, and I believe the only active coach that's close to achieving that feat is Doc Rivers, which Doc Rivers should get to 2,000 games, right? But other than that, it was kind of a weak day when we look back in history. But if we move forward today, on January 4th in NBA history, there's some more notable performances. So I'm going to bring that to the show as well. Michael Jordan, as a part of the Washington Wizards, he scored his 30,000th point. At the time, he was only the fourth person to do that. I don't know what person, right? But Michael Jordan, as a member of the Washington Wizards, scored his 30,000th point. And right now, I believe there's only 5 or 6 people that have done it. But at the time, he was the fourth to do so. In 1975, the New Orleans Jazz, you heard that right, the New Orleans Jazz, they set an NBA record by only scoring 20 points in the first half of a game in a loss to Seattle in 1975. That record of only scoring 20 points in a half stood for nearly 25 years before the Los Angeles Clippers scored only 19 points in the first half against the Lakers in 1999, which obviously that record still stands today. It might stand forever, right? Only 19 points in a half. We mentioned just a few seconds ago that Steph Curry had a 21-point first quarter alone, right? Let alone first half. So that record will probably stand forever, but records are made to be broken. In 1992, Robert Parrish for the Boston Celtics, he became the 5th player in NBA history to record 2,000 career blocks. And in 2005, Indiana Pacers center, shout out to you guys if you remember this guy, but Jermaine O'Neal, he scored 55 points in a win against the Washington Wizards, which I believe was way past MJ's retirement. But overall, you had some notable performances on January 3rd and 4th throughout NBA history. But regardless, next up we're going to move to our main segment of the day, which is our power rankings. As you see in the thumbnail, we're about 14, 15 minutes in. So this shouldn't take too long, right? But with nearly half the season in the books, both the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference standings, if you look at them, they're as tight as could be, right, from 1 through 8. But the title race, this year, it seems like it's as open as it's been in a long time, right? It feels like history is being made almost every night, and the MVP race is shaping up to be one of the wildest in recent memory. I think this is going to be a season that goes down like a season in 2016, where it's a very memorable season. But with it being 2023, and I figured for this season lining up to be one of the most legendary ever, I felt it's time for some good old-fashioned power rankings, right? As a reminder, these power rankings that I'm doing, they're a reflection of where teams stand to this point in the season. They're not necessarily a projection of where they may land later in the season, but they are what we know now. At halfway through the season, at 8:30 in the morning on January 3rd, this is what we know right now. You guys got it? Great. Let's go. The number 10 spot I have is the Dallas Mavericks. The Get Superstar X or enter superstar name, the Get Superstar blank some help. That take has been overplayed throughout history, but it doesn't make that take any less true, right? Dallas currently sits at the 4 seed in the Western Conference. They're on a 6-game winning streak, and it is amazing to say that they have gotten to this point, right? But Dallas, they've needed godlike efforts from Luka Doncic, their star player, just to get to this point, right? And at some point this year, for their New Year's resolution, it better be to get Luka Doncic some help. Because if they don't, the frustrations of Luka from their star player may continue to grow. And though I don't see Luka as the type of player to demand a trade or want out, but it's 2023. It is the age of player empowerment, right? Anything can happen. Anything can happen if Luka were to decide to leave Dallas, and that is the last thing they want. And all they had to do was get him some help. But my number 10 spot is the Dallas Mavericks solely because of Luka Doncic. The number 9 spot I have the LA Clippers. They have one of the most dangerous rosters on paper, but with injuries and load management, it's limited availability to some of their key players like Kawhi Leonard, like Paul George, etc., etc. But this team has managed to keep themselves in the top half of the West, and once they get their team consistently out there on the floor and healthy, I think they'll be just fine, right? I will say it's also good to see Kawhi. He's starting to ramp up his minutes. He's starting to play consistently, and it's always a good thing to see, man, because at one point people were considering him to be the best player in the world. I never saw it that way, but we missed him. As NBA fans, we have missed Kawhi Leonard on the floor, and consistently at that. So my number 9 spot is the Los Angeles Clippers. Coming in at number 8, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. Rumors have already emerged about James Harden's plans this offseason. We've talked about it a lot on last Tuesday's show, so if you missed it, go check that out. But we already know there's a lot of stuff going on with James Harden. The head coach of this team, Doc Rivers, he's not going to be able to escape questions about his job security, even if Philadelphia does have a good regular season and okay playoff run. There's always going to be questions, right? Because when you have Joel Embiid and you have James Harden, arguably 2 top 10, 15 players in the world, your goal is to win a championship, and that is what you are supposed to do as a veteran head coach, right? That's the standard you're held up to. But in my opinion, if this Sixers team can just ignore any outside noise and remain focused on what their goal is, which is a championship, they'll be just fine. Obviously, Joel Embiid, he's been great, arguably a top 5 player in the world. James Harden, he at times, he looks back to the Houston Harden that we all know and love, coincidentally. But, the role players like Georges Niang, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Those guys have been coming around, and they've been getting way more comfortable in their roles. PJ Tucker as well. But no surprise they're in the top 10, right? No surprise. Next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. If I saw the game last night, they would be higher before I made these rankings, but we're here, right? We're here. But as a Cavs fan, the core has been great. Donovan Mitchell, obviously, he just had a 71-point game last night. We just talked about it earlier in the show, so I won't go too on about it. But he is a MVP candidate this season for sure. Obviously, the core of our team is great when we have Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, right? But Evan Mobley and and Darius Garland are two young guys. They've missed a decent amount of time this season, right? And for us to still be a top 3-4 seed in the East with how stacked the East is, it really shows how great of a player that Donovan Mitchell is. It shows how great of a leader he is. And if our young guys can get healthy and continue to grow, we could be a sneaky team when it comes to the playoff time. But to me, the only thing missing, the only reason I don't have this team in the top 5 is because we are missing a reliable 3. I know I said I'm not projecting for the postseason, but still, even right now, I believe we are missing a veteran wing like a Jay Crowder or, maybe a PJ Tucker type player where we need a guy that is a playoff winner. He's a winner. He's going to come in, and he's going to be a gritty guy for us. He's going to lock down that 3 position, and he's really going to give us, for example, someone like a Jay Crowder, right, for the Phoenix Suns. If we add him, he would be a guy that wouldn't shut down, but he would minimize the efforts of a Kevin Durant, or he would take on the Jason Tatum assignment in the playoffs, right? And he's also going to provide some consistent 3-point shooting. Overall, in my eyes, a guy like Jay Crowder fits perfectly with the Cleveland Cavaliers system. I believe a consistent 3 that's going to be great on both sides of the ball. That's just what we're missing right now. The number 6 seed, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. They're top 10 team. They're the only team that is top 10 defensively, and top 10 in the net rating for the advanced stats guys. They're the only team in the league. Right? So the Pelicans, they've been amazing. They're fighting for the 1 seed in the Western Conference. They appear to be a legitimate contender. And they've, in a way, kind of come out of nowhere, right? I expected this team to be a 5, 6, maybe a 4 seed and win a playoff series or 2, right? But with the help of Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and, the CJ McCollums of the world, a fully healthy Pels team, I believe they could do some serious damage in the playoffs. And I'm hoping to see it, right? Because I love Zion as a player. I love a player like Herb Jones. A player like Herb Jones would fit perfectly with the Cavaliers right now. Obviously, we have no way of getting him. But players like that were drafted late in the first round or in the second round that didn't have much expectations, that have made a name for themselves. Another example is like a Jose Alvarado, backup point guard for this Pelicans team. These guys, I love to see that, right? I love to see players make a name for themselves, and this team is full of it. So this Pelicans team, I'm hoping they can do damage in the playoffs. As of right now, they're an amazing team. They're top 3 in the West, and they're at number 6 in my power rankings. The number 5 team is the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, and it is the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant. Obviously, early in this season, he was asked a question about why this team struggled against teams in the Western Conference. Ja Morant basically came out and he was like, look, man, we're fine. Right? And, to his credit, he hasn't backed down from those comments. But this Grizzlies team, they are 9-10 against Western Conference teams. So that is something to worry about, right? But this team loves trash talk. I just hope they can get some more conference wins, especially in the West. But aside from that, this team, for my wrestling fans, they've kind of embraced the bad guy look, right, in the NBA. Like I said, for my wrestling fans, they've kind of turned heel on the rest of the league, and I love that they're embracing it, right? It's fun to watch. It's fun to, I guess, root against them, right? Even though I want to see Ja Morant win. It's like the Nets team from 2 years ago, right? Every single year, the NBA fans, they pick a bad team, right? The bad guys of the league. It was the Heatles for many years. Then it was the Warriors with their stag teams. It was the Nets. And now it seems to be the Memphis Grizzlies. So it's going to be fun night in and night out to watch them. And sometimes it's fun to watch them lose, I'm not going to lie. But the number 4 spot, this proves to you guys this is rankings to this part in the season. To me, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks, they've played this season. They've been terrible from beyond the arc. Aside from the first 10 games of the year. Obviously after the first 10 games of the year, I came out and I made a video and I said that this is the best Milwaukee Bucks team of all time. In a way, I still believe that, right? But they have both sides of the ball. They've looked terrible since that point, right? So maybe I jinxed them. But the biggest problem with this team, their half-court offense, when the game is settled down, it has a bad tendency to just look very stagnant, for long stretches. And obviously the game of basketball is a game of stretches, right? But they just have a bad tendency to go on bad stretches for long periods of time, and that costs them a lot of games, right? But for this team, role players like Brook Lopez and Grayson Allen, they're the best shooters on the team, at least percentage-wise. So shout out to them. But the secondary star on this team, the Batman, quote-unquote, or the Robin, Chris Middleton. Obviously he's been in and out of the lineup all season. And with him being out of the lineup all the time, it puts a lot on Giannis' shoulders to consistently pretty much do everything for this ball club. Night in, night out, both sides of the ball. It basically, this team is asking Giannis to be Superman, right? But good news for the Bucks, they still have the best player in the world in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and even with all their struggles this season, they're still a top 5 team in the league. And I'm basically, the only reason they're down now, and the only reason I just bashed them, is because I'm comparing them to them, and we all know where this Bucks team can be, especially in the regular season. And right now, they're just not playing up to par, and that's why they're the number 4 seed. And in my opinion, if I had to bet, they're still my title favorites. But coming into the number 3 seed, it is my best team in the West. To no one's surprise, it is the Denver Nuggets. Excuse me. But Nikola Jokic, his MVP level of play this season, it's launched the Nuggets in a way to the top of the West, right? Obviously, the West is very, very competitive. It's very tight. But despite the injuries to Michael Porter Jr. this year, and despite Jamal Murray, the second best player on this team, working his way back from injury, this Nuggets team, due to Nikola Jokic, has stayed at the top of the West. Shout out to Aaron Gordon, man. Aaron Gordon, I'm not going to say he will be an all-star this year. I know it sounds crazy, but he deserves some votes. Aaron Gordon has stepped up and he's been amazing this year. Obviously, he had that crazy dunk, but that's not even half of it, right? He's been amazing both sides of the ball. He's really stepped up, and Nikola Jokic has let Aaron Gordon get in his bag offensively, and we've seen a different Aaron Gordon this year, right? It really makes this team dangerous, especially come playoff time. But this team, despite all the hurdles they've had to get over this year, they're still first in the West. Once they get firing on all cylinders and they're healthy, Denver's going to be a scary team. And right now, they're the third team in the Western, or third team in my power rankings, best team in the Western Conference. The number 2 seed is the fiery, the red hot Brooklyn Nets. They're on a 12-game winning streak. Last night, obviously, I think they beat the San Antonio Spurs by 36 or something like that. So, 12-game winning streak. They've looked amazing, and it feels like no one's paying attention to this team. It really feels like, even though they are a New York media team, it feels like they're not getting the coverage like the Lakers, the Warriors, the Bucks, or the Celtics. Hey, if I'm the Nets, hey, let the NBA world do that. Let them cover the big market teams, not named us, and let us keep racking up some wins, right? And I feel like, as a fan perspective, when expectations are low for this Nets team, it seems like that's when they're at their best. Obviously they have 2 top 15 players in the world in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and I can't think of the word I want to use right now, but I'm just happy to see that Jacque Vaughn the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. He stepped in for Steve Nash. He's figured it out with this duo of Kyrie and KD, and he's figured it out with the remaining core. And this Nets team is finally dominating like we know they could have, for the 3-4 years that this duo has been together. And I'm just happy, selfishly. That's the word I was looking for. Selfishly as a fan, I'm happy this team has figured something out. But my number one team, to no one's surprise, it is the Boston Celtics. They have the best record in the NBA. Jason Tatum's playing at an MVP level. Jaylen Brown, he's flirting with his first All-Star appearance and All-NBA appearance. I take that back, actually. I believe he's been to the All-Star game 2 times already. So regardless, he's flirting with an All-Star starter spot as well as an All-NBA appearance. So Jaylen Brown's been amazing. Jason Tatum's been amazing. Everything's falling into place for this team to return to the NBA Finals. And obviously that's easier said than done. But this team, I mean, they have those 2-star players. They have a great supporting cast. They arguably have the best guard play in the NBA, from head to toe. Saying you got Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Malcolm Brogdon, and Peyton Pritchard off the bench. All 4 of those guys have played amazing this year. Derek White as well. He's the starting 2 guard. I don't know how I missed him. But they have 5 or 6 very, very good guards on this team. Overall, from top to bottom, they might have the best guard play in the NBA, right? Obviously, the East is very tough this year. As you've seen my rankings, 3 of my top 5 teams are in the Eastern Conference. So the East is going to be very tough this year. Returning to the finals is easier said than done. This Boston Celtics team, though, they just have to continue to play well. Jason Tatum's going to continue to get better as a player. He's really starting to hit his prime. And this Celtics team, man, I mean, they have everything you need to go deep in a playoff run. But that's going to do it for my playoff rankings, or my power rankings to this point, not playoff rankings. To recap, we have number 10, we have the Dallas Mavericks. 9, we have the Los Angeles Clippers. 8, we have the 76ers. 7, Cavs. 6, Pelicans. And the top 5 goes as follows. We have the Memphis Grizzlies at 5. The Milwaukee Bucks at 4. The number 3 team is the best team in the Western Conference, in my opinion, the Denver Nuggets. The number 2 seed is the Brooklyn Nets, who are on a 12-game winning streak, looking amazing. And the number 1 seed is the Boston Celtics. But that's going to do it. I mean, I'm going to leave the graphic on there for a couple more seconds. But that is going to do it for today's show. Obviously, I thought we were flying through those power rankings, huh? We're only about 33 minutes into the show, but I'm sure you guys will enjoy the shorter episode. But like I said, that's going to do it for today's show. Again, I want to preface, keep Demar Hamlin and his family in your prayers as we move forward, uncertain on his condition, right? Obviously, right now, it's a very scary situation. We don't have 100% clarity on what's going on with his health, to move forward. But keep Demar Hamlin in your prayers as we move forward. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Let me know what you guys think about my power rankings in the comments below. Who's too high? Who's too low? Let me know, man. I always love to debate with you guys. But this is your reminder to drop a like on the show, on the podcast, whatever you want to call it. Subscribe to the channel. As we're approaching 50 subscribers, it would be our first milestone, right? Our biggest milestone, right? Saying that would be what we have. And turn those post notifications on, man. I'm extremely grateful for you guys so far. The support's been amazing. I feel like 2023, we can really hit a new level with this podcast. And like I said, the support has been amazing to this point. But I will see you guys on Thursday with a big announcement for next Tuesday's show. It is approaching that time for you guys to get active. So stay on the lookout for Thursday's show. We have a big announcement for next week. But obviously on Thursday, we're going to have our weekly NFL coverage. If there was going to be a show that you were going to miss of my podcast, don't miss Thursday, right? Obviously, we have a bunch of games Thursday. We're going to have to cover. A lot of games have playoff implications. Who's going to get into the playoffs? Who's not going to be in the playoffs? There's a lot to cover on Thurday's show. Don't miss it. But until then, peace, love, and hugs. I'm out. Please, please, please keep Demar Hamlin in your prayers as we move forward. I'll see you guys Thursday.